How to communicate in relationships, whether it's with your partner, your children, employees, or staff. Most men haven't been taught this extremely valuable skill. So in today's podcast episode, we're going to teach you 4 tactics and strategies to communicate better in your relationship with your partner, wife, or anyone else in your life. If you want to become a master of the skill of communication, this will be extremely valuable for you. So strap in and enjoy this episode of the Empowered Man podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about communication in relationships. Right after our episode, the previous one on love meetings, communication sounds simple, right? Just communicate with your wife, make her happy, communicate with your kids, communicate with your employees and your staff. What ends up happening, Sam, with our communication? We think we're good at it, and then boom. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. What's communication in a relationship mean to you?
Communication to me it's an opener. It's a dialogue. It's open, it's honest, it's authentic. Sometimes it's brutal. Often it leads us, if done well, it leads us towards growth.
Yeah.
But done not so well, it's the boom.
Yeah.
It's the chaos.
My relationships used to be a sack of steaming shit because my communication was terrible. I used to get so triggered at my ex before we separated. She'd say something to piss me off intentionally. Long, stressful day, grinding in the business, come home, and she goes, and just goes at me. And I just lose my shit. And then she would start yelling and saying, fuck you, Tony. So then my response was to yell and say, fuck you. I'm not going to mention her name. And it was just this like massive disconnection. And it's crazy how just a few words can completely derail the connection in your relationship.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that when your communication isn't functioning in a relationship, you either have the silent treatment or the angry treatment where you're walking on eggshells? It seeps into every area of your life.
Yeah.
Like it has a massive impact on your business, has a massive impact on your career, because you have that argument or you have that breakdown of communication and then you take it with you the entire day. I remember that sometimes I'd be doing so well in my business and I'd be like, yeah, I'm winning. And then we'd have an argument and then I just go into my day just thinking about it.
Yeah.
It was just this weight of like, oh, I should have said this. Or sometimes I'd be so upset at Rosie, my current wife, future lifetime wife, that like I didn't want to talk to her. So I'd go down to the beach and I just sit there just thinking about how unfair it is and how she doesn't get it. And it was just this fucking like weight. There's this weight on my shoulders. So in today's episode, what we'll do, we'll give you 5 different key components of communication. And make sure you're subscribed to the podcast because this is going to be part 1 of maybe a 2 or 17 part series because there's so much communication you can have. We're going to give you 5 different types of communication that you can use, not just in your relationship to fix your marriage and be more intimate, but also to be a better father, to be a better leader in your business. Communication is everywhere. It's everyone. It's everything. So the first key part of communication, the first thing you must know about communication with your partner or your loved ones is the choice of the words that you use. If I say to you, Sam, you're doing a great job, but get your fucking shit together, how are you going to react?
Not well.
Yeah. Have I done that before?
No, you haven't.
Good. Yes. It's first time for everything. If my wife says to me, you're an idiot, how am I going to react? Not well. If my wife says to me, I'm proud of you, how I'm going to react? Very well. The choice of the words we use in relationships is extremely important. And that's because of the meaning we put on certain words. So from your experience with your relationship breakdown and also the hundreds of high performance men we've coached, what are some of those trigger words that we choose in a relationship that can really mess with a man and a woman? What are they? Do you know?
There are so many words. Like when we're talking about choice of words, like I think of this old quote, I don't even remember where I heard it, but words bring life or words bring death and destruction. And every time, like words are so important to me. Like I'll mull over a coaching call for 2-3 hours because I want the words to be spot on. So my choice of words is always great, but in the heat of the moment, we use should, we blame, we point the finger, you made me feel, all of these things. And from my own experience, I have, in the past used words like that have been like an arrow fired at the other person, not just in my previous marriage, but in all sorts of relationships. It's just you fire these words off because you're um, angry, frustrated, not heard, misunderstood. And as a result, I think for so many men, we feel like we've got to save face. We'll talk about that later in the podcast, but we've got to save face. And as a result, we throw these words and they're
Yeah.
just meaningless things to us. But for the other person, they have the potential to kill a relationship. They've got a potential to destroy and damage any form of resolution or outcome.
Absolutely. So well said. I mean, the communication in your relationships affects everything: your wealth, your happiness, your fulfillment, your drive. And if you're using language that is weaponized, for example, your wife or partner triggers you, or your employee does something you don't like, and you start taking shots verbally, you say things like, "How dare you do that?" or "You made me feel this way," or "You always do this." And then we throw in global language that's very unspecific. We really just create stories with that communication. And those stories are simply not true most of the time. But we aim, ready, fire, we attack that person. And because our language, our choice of words, what we say to them is so negative or so blamey or so attacking, they're almost forced to defend, right?
Yeah.
And it's ironic because we don't do this on purpose. We do it because we go into an emotional state of being. It's quite ironic how, as men who are leaders, we lead our business, we lead our team, we lead our children, but then we go into this childish state, don't we? And we use language like a child would. Like a child would say, "That's not fair. Daddy, you made me sad." It's like, Daddy didn't make you anything, honey. You're choosing to feel sad. But this emotion is what causes these choice of words to flare up, right? So choice of words is basically what you say. It's the language that you use, the specific language. And when you use negative language in an emotional state, it's very challenging to be logical. We've got to separate emotion and logic, right? So in a logical state, you don't say she always does this. Let's say your wife, you come home and your wife is at you as soon as you walk through the door. You've been working and you feel like she doesn't appreciate you. And her choice of words is, "Oh, you'll come home late again," right? And then you start yelling at her, you go, "You always get angry at me." But what about the time she doesn't? We don't get specific.
Yeah.
So if you are using negative words towards your partner or your loved ones, the first step is awareness. What are the specific words you're using? And then ask yourself, well, am I in an emotional state of being when I use these words, or am I logical? And the way you pull yourself out of emotion and into logic is by getting specific.
Yes.
So not you always do this. It's like, well, honey, like this happens quite often. There are many times where you aren't doing it, but it seems like you're coming at me. And we find it so hard to do that because it requires a deep level of emotion. Now, this is a really important one. The other way around, we can control ourselves. We can't control our partner. There are things your partner or employees or kids are going to say that piss you off. That's life, right? We cannot control what they say. We can only control how we respond.
Yeah.
But we can also influence what they say to us. And how would we do that? I did this with Rosie the other day, but I'd love to know with the men you coach and we work with. Let's say your wife or partner says something that pisses you off and you want to make it known to her that that's not okay. Yeah. How do most men do it versus how we could do it? What are the differences between the two?
You know, when you start to see a conversation becoming an argument and then it's just leveling up to like next level conflict.
Yeah.
We what's the word? We feed off of each other.
Yeah.
As it increases. In the past, when I've been aware of this and have decided to I can either keep on adding fire to the flame, or I can be the one that kind of caps and puts a ceiling on how heated this conversation is going to get.
Yeah.
And I do this with my son. When he gets heated at me, if I get heated at him, he gets heated again. And then, we keep on building. I refuse to raise my voice above a certain level.
Yeah.
And if he's screaming at me, eventually he has to come and match me in order to practically hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's a tool that I wish I had learned a lot earlier.
In the marriage. Yeah.
But now I choose whether I'm the creator of a safe environment through my words and my language,
Mm-hmm.
or not.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
set the temperature. And that, for me, on a practical level,
Mm-hmm.
when there is conflict, I can't control what they say. I can control what I say, but I can also control the tone
Yep.
and the words and the level of heat that
Yeah.
I'm willing to go to,
Yep.
and refusing, which is like your blood's boiling within you and all you want to do is lash out, but
Mm-hmm.
getting to the point where you're like, no, no.
Yeah. Hey, legend, if you're getting value from this podcast, then you're going to love our Empowered Man 7-Day Challenge. Inside, we've taken some of the best content our clients invest thousands of dollars for to change their lives, and we've given it to you in the course of 7 days. This challenge is worth over $3,000, and you can get it for $37, 97% off. Inside, we'll teach you how to fix your marriage and relationships and reconnect with your partner, your kids, your wife. We will teach you how to take back your time, how to take back your power, get into powerful routines, and how to take control of your life. Take control of your mind, take control of your business, take control of your health, take control of your wealth. Sounds too good to be true, but there's a complete money back guarantee. So if you're enjoying this podcast, go to elitebusinessman.com/challenge. That's elitebusinessman.com/challenge. It's going to be in the call notes as well, and you'll be able to register for this challenge that will completely change your life. Well, that's what arguments are. It's you just like, it's you raising your voice, using a shitty tone, which is the second point we're about to get into. What you say is your choice of words. The way you say it is your tonality.
Yes.
And they're two distinctly different things. But it's in those moments of heat, our default pattern as men especially is we are driven by war and fighting and hunting and going to battle and business. And our ego gets in the way, which we'll talk about later. And it's in those moments that we lose control of our emotions. So what we say and how we say it is based upon emotions. And if we can temper those emotions, then we can control what we say and how we say it. Just going back to the point though, I mean, I was talking to Rosie during one of our love meetings, which we've got a podcast coming up on that. So if you want to hear that, it's extremely powerful. Make sure you follow the podcast and subscribe wherever you're listening to. And we had one of those love meetings, and I said to Rosie, it would be nice if you actually like checked in on me and instead of telling me all the things I'm doing wrong, you sometimes pointed out the things I'm doing right. So I'm sure in a relationship you've experienced, every man has had this where in your relationship, you do 8 things right. You help with the dishes, you help with the kids, you do this, you do that, even though you're working hard and making money and providing. And then your partner points out the one thing you haven't done.
Yeah.
And her choice of words is like, oh, why'd you leave that on the bench? Or like, why'd you move my phone from there to there? And in your head, you're so close to just exploding because your choice of words is now going to be, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
And the outcome of using those words is, can you not see everything I've done? So this is where we get to influence our partner. And instead of saying, are you fucking serious? Emotional response, logically, we get to go, cool. They must either have not have seen that or not acknowledged it. So logically you go, cool. Darling, I understand that you're upset about that. I'll do it right now. Have you noticed the other 7 things I've done? Not trying to be rude, but I've put a lot of effort into giving you what you want. And it seems like you've just honed in on the one thing I haven't done. Imagine saying that to your partner calmly. Now you can say that in an angry way, which is tonality, and it turns to shit. Like, babe, like I've done 7 other things and you're pointing out that one. That's tonality. It's a very frustrated, like you're an idiot tone, right? Tonality is the way you say things. Whereas if you say it like this, like, darling, you must be quite stressed. And I'm sorry I didn't do that. I'll get it done right now. Look, I don't know if you've noticed, I've done these 7 other things and I don't expect you to acknowledge them, but have you noticed them? See the difference in tonality? It's almost the exact same language, but it's how you say things. And there are many different tonalities. There's the like, you're an idiot tonality. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Your employee does. We had this with the client the other day. His employee walked in and he knocked on the door and he opened the door. And our client's on the call with me and he goes, can't you read the fucking sign? Because the sign said, don't come in.
Yeah.
Now, I would never speak to someone like that because now I'm a dickhead. Like, did that guy make a mistake? Yes, but he's not a child. And you shouldn't even talk to that like a child. So I'm like, that was pretty intense. He's like, oh, he should know there's a sign. The way I would have dealt with that is, hey, mate, I'm just on a call. Do you mind coming back later? Not there's a sign. See the difference in tonality? Like, you're an idiot. What other tonalities are there? Judgmental, sarcastic. What did you experience in your relationship? What do we deal with on a daily basis?
A lot of sarcastic. It's
Yeah,
you say something and you're like, what? Do you know what I mean? You
yeah,
say something that's fine, I guess, on paper,
yeah.
but the tone is like,
It's
ugh,
a lie.
it's a lie.
It's a lie. It's like how you doing? I'm fine.
I'm fine. What's
Why don't
wrong?
you just
Nothing.
fucking call a spade, Sally?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
it.
what else? Sarcasm. Like, let's run through some of these. Like, how would you say something sarcastically? There's, give me a. Don't want to give me a kiss, then, huh? It's hard to even say it when you're not in the moment, isn't it?
Even the something hasn't been done, and so, oh well, I'll do it then. As
Yeah,
opposed to,
yeah,
oh, I'll do it then. I'll
yeah.
do it then.
Oh, you must have had a lot busy day. Let me help you out with the dishes. Oh,
Yeah,
fuck it, I'll do it then. Like, yeah, yeah. And it's so nuanced, isn't it? Like, this is hard for a lot of men to grasp.
yeah,
But I ain't got time to learn about tonality. I'm busy building a business. Cool, mate.
yeah,
What happens when you split half your assets?
yeah.
Another one is a judgmental tone. I do this a lot with my wife to this day, and I don't intend to. So, for
Mm,
example, we have an iPhone that we're trading in, and it's been like I think 14 days that she has to trade it in, and there's 3 days left. And most days I'm like, "Have you done the iPhone yet?" But like, it's not intentional. Sometimes I'll say it in a way where I'm like, "Have you done the iPhone yet?" Like, it's that slight difference. It's like,
yeah,
"Come on, mate!" Like, it's that judgmental tone, which is when you think about it, when someone loves you and you love them, love is the absence of judgment.
mm, yeah,
So if you're in a relationship where you're judging your partner, are you really loving them? If love is the absence of judgment and you're talking to your partner and using language and choice of words and a tonality of like, have you done that yet? I can't believe you haven't done that yet. It's a very judgmental tone of voice. And like, you got to imagine how much that's beating someone down. The
absolutely.
strong man, and you got this woman who's meant to be your wife and you're beating her down. We don't do this on purpose though.
Mm,
But imagine that compounding for 10 years.
mm,
How much resentment builds in the relationship.
mm.
What's another one? Angry tone. What's an angry tone like? Can you even do an angry tone, Sam? I don't know.
I probably can't manufacture one like right now,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can do an angry tone. Like it's a reaction,
Yeah. Yeah.
to something that sets you off. But it's
Well, have you got angry at Luca before? That might be a good example. Or your ex. Like, how would you get angry?
yeah, like when Luca drew on the walls in our last house, you've got so much to look forward to, Tony. When he
Oh, no.
drew on the walls, he had his crayon, but he also had one of those ink, the bingo,
Yeah.
like, and it was
Not
just
good.
the ball that was on the floor, and you know, my t- my tone was like, "Oh, seriously."
Oh, wow. Yeah. But I felt it. It's this intense energy.
Yeah, and I saw him, and it scarred me. Like I saw him,
Freak out. Yeah.
and he did the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
are so many other ways for me to communicate that now. Like
Yeah.
now, I ask questions. What did you think that was the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Totally different. But those
Yeah.
moments, like,
It's fear-based, right?
yes,
And if so, as men, what we want in a relationship is desire, appreciation, and respect.
mm,
But if we do that, I got to mark this. What we want in a relationship as a man, especially a successful man, is desire, appreciation, and respect.
mm,
But if we achieve those things from our partner or our children or our employees through fear, then that's not real respect. That's tyrannical.
yeah,
That's Hitler-esque. Maybe you're not killing millions of Jews, but you're killing the connection with your partner due to a shitty form of communication. Real powerful men, they don't need to yell and be angry to get the point across.
mm,
They can speak from a frame of power and they demand respect, but also from a place of love. And that's such a nuance with your tonality. Like your kid does something wrong and you go, "Are you serious?" And you go, Talia, we do not do that. And it's
mm,
this assertive tone. When my wife and I get into arguments, I'm like, "Rosie, I know you're upset right now, but let's bring it back." Right? It's
yeah,
this tonality like, calm down.
yeah, yeah.
Same
Stop
thing.
crying.
Stop yelling. Like, but we do this as
Yeah,
men. We lose control of our tonality and then we get angry and
mm,
upset, and that can really frighten our loved ones, even our employees. The
mm,
other side of the coin is with that tonality is when you meet somebody at their level and they don't back down. You know,
Mm.
I love my sister-in-law to bits, but we had a big argument one day over something minor. She was disciplining her kid, and I jumped in. I'm like, do you mind keeping it down? She got upset at me, and I reacted. I was like, don't talk to me like that. And she went from 0 to 100. Not her fault. It was just a pattern. And I was like, there is no way I'm winning this. So I backed down right away because I knew that if I kept going, it would get violent,
Yeah.
you know, and I actually went and apologized to her afterwards. But the tonality just went boom, 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 boom. So
Mm.
you're either going to frighten these people with your tonality and be that grumpy dad with your kids walking on eggshells, or the husband that like the wife's afraid of, or you're going to meet your match and it can get nasty. This is how physical abuse can happen as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Very scary stuff. So we have the choice of words, first part of communication. What language are you using? If there are words that trigger you from your partner, you got to make that known. And if there are words that you use to trigger your partner, you got to stop doing that.
Mm.
You know, in my relationship, if Rosie like, you know, if I call her stupid, she'll get really upset. But if I call her silly, it's a different story, right? Then
Yeah.
there's the tonality. It's the way you say things.
Mm.
And this is practiced. Every time you see someone react to the way you say things, the inflections of your voice, you got to course correct. You got to adjust. This is why in our programs, we teach reflection, daily reflection. It's a very powerful tool. And if you want that tool, you can jump onto our 7-day challenge. The link will be down below. Now, the next one is asking powerful questions. Sam, I got a question for you. What's a powerful question?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked.
I
I
love
think
this podcast.
a powerful question is coming from that place of curiosity
Mm.
in a relationship. So what I said just before about that conversation with Luca, when now when he does something that's, you know, not quite right or not how we do things,
Mm-hmm.
it's that inquisitive, curious. So what's going on for you right now? Like, what are you feeling right now? Like we're very big on feelings and feeling words. His feeling vocabulary is huge because we work on that. And it's like, so what's going on? What were you feeling when that happened? Or what was going through your mind when you
Mm-hmm.
drew on the walls or whatever you did? Coming
Yeah.
from that place of curiosity. But
Yeah.
also in any relationship, in the heat of a moment, when we can actually gain some traction in our brain and ask a question like, what's going on for you right now? Like there was one of our clients I was talking to yesterday. He was like, oh, my wife's not noticing this and this, and I'm changing things, and she's still, you know, backing off and not interested. And I said, why don't you just take her out of her environment, take her out for a meal, and just sit her down and say, how you doing?
Mm.
What's going on for you now? Like, how are you? Like, life's been pretty tough. How are you finding things?
Yeah.
And it's those questions from that place of curiosity, but also genuine care
Yep.
that for a person can just allow a lot of those walls to somewhat soften.
Yep.
Oh, they care. And now I'm going to start to share or open up. Now, that may take time. They may not be there straight away, but it's definitely the avenue towards open communication.
Absolutely. We had a guy comment on our podcast a few days ago, and he's like, what do you do if you're listening to this podcast and you're changing, but your partner's just a victim and she doesn't want to change and she doesn't think there's a problem and anything you do, nothing's right? And my response was, well, I don't know this woman personally, but it sounds like you've just got to try different strategies and ask different questions. So like if somebody isn't giving you the answer you want, it means they either don't understand the question or it's not a good enough question.
Mm.
For example, if you're getting into arguments in your relationship, we typically tell our partner what to do. We're like, you shouldn't be upset, or you shouldn't have done that, or you shouldn't do this. At Empowered Man, we have a communication hack called Tell, Ask, Show, Do. Very powerful communication hack for relationships is instead of telling the person what they should or shouldn't do, asking them questions to figure out, be inquisitive and curious about what's going on for them mentally, emotionally. What are they thinking about? How are they feeling? And if you can ask really good questions, you can show them you understand and then do what is necessary to support them. Let me give you an example. I go downstairs yesterday. My wife's upset. She's yelling at our daughter. She doesn't do it often. She's been doing really well. She's working on herself, but she hasn't slept. She's tired. And I hear her getting really angry, like, sort of like what you did with Luca. It's normal. My father did it for years. I don't do that, but a lot of parents do. And in that moment, I go downstairs and I'm like, are you okay? Now, sometimes I go down, I'm like, can you not yell at her? And that triggers her. Because even though it's done from a place of love, I tell her what to do.
Mm.
She got told what to do by her parents. It's a trigger for her. She feels attacked. She defends. So instead of telling her what to do, a more powerful tool is to ask her a powerful question. Hey, is everything okay? She's like, I'm fine. We know what that means. So instead of leaving it at that, which most men do, they try this. They go home. They're like, I'll ask my wife, is everything okay? I'm fine. Yeah, it's all fine. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I know you. I know you're not okay. Has something stressed you out today? Nothing at all. Darling, I know you. Tonality, listen to it's caring. It's empathetic. So I know you.
Mm.
Like clearly something's up. Do you want me to take the kids? Ask, show that you understand. Do you want to take the kids and why don't you go get a massage?
Mm.
See how much like
That's
ownership and responsibility as a man you've got to take to have a great relationship.
Yeah.
And so many guys will say, well, that's not fair. It's not. But as a leader, this is how you get way more of what you want. I do this with my wife. Guess how much sex I get? Guess how much connection I feel from her? Guess how much she supports me around the house? And I can tell you right now, when I don't ask powerful questions, I lose. I lose. Let's say with you, Sam, like you're a head coach here at Empowered Man. I'm the owner of the company. There have been times where I've just told you what you've done wrong. And I can see it in your face. You're like upset. And you're like, fuck, where'd that come from? There's other times where I'm like, hey, man, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? You're like, I'm really struggling. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, it seems like these things aren't working. How can I support you? And you're like, oh, this guy actually gives a fuck, right? So you got to care. You got to care. I think a lot of us as well, we try to mind read. We don't ask questions. We just expect the person to know. Have you experienced this before? Like, how has that shown up in your life and in your relationships?
How much
Shivers up the spine.
When we ask specifically closed questions,
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong? Nothing. Cool. I cared. I asked. How many years did I do that? As I reflect back now, so many years I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Is everything okay? It's still somewhat a closed question, but it actually does start to, yes, everything's okay. Okay. Well, I'm noticing that X, Y, and Z, like you just said, and leading towards an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
When we ask those closed questions, like you said, we don't get an outcome, we don't get a resolution. What starts to fester is bitterness and resentment. And I, reflecting back, saw that at play in my relationship a lot. Didn't realize at the time, but that's what was going on. Now, when we ask open questions, we can start to gain clarity. When we ask open questions, we can start to work toward a solution when we identify what it is. Okay, this is what's going on. How about we X, Y, and Z? Or how about we get away for the weekend? Or how about we just take 5 and let's come back to that later? Or whatever it is. And yeah, I think it's really powerful. I ask my son questions all the time. Mm-hmm. He's the one I'm in the closest relationship with, and we talk a lot. He asks me a lot of questions as well. Sometimes I'm on the receiving end of those questions and I'm like, how did he think to ask me that? Because I'm training him to ask powerful questions as opposed to short, just yes, no, maybe, I'm fine questions. And I'm starting to see that play out as I coach others. What's coaching? Coaching's asking powerful questions. It's not saying, here's my best advice, but it's asking powerful questions to unlock something that's already within others.
Yeah, because if they realize that they're empowered. If I tell you that you need to lose weight to be healthy, you're going to tell me to fuck off because you already know that. But if I ask you, well, how long have you been overweight for? 8 years. How's it affecting your energy? A lot.
Yeah.
How's your sex life? Not good. How do you feel when you look in the mirror? Terrible. Well, look, man, it doesn't sound good. What happens if this continues for 5 more years? Oh, well, I'll probably lose everything. Can you afford for that to happen? No. Cool. So let's create a vision, right? This is how we coach on our calls. And like you said with Luca and the people in your life, those closed questions are 1-word answers.
Yeah.
So if you want to communicate better in relationships, you've got to ask open-ended questions. A closed-ended question is, How are you feeling today? Good. Do you want to go out tonight? No. But it's like, what's going on for you? You can't say yes or no. It's open-ended, as in like it requires more than a word. And when you ask a question of the people in your life, you want to do it from a place of curiosity. As an inquisitor, you're inquisitive, you search, you genuinely care, and you want to know more about how someone's thinking and feeling. What's going on for you, darling? You okay? I'm fine. Well, what does that mean? Nothing. Well, do you want to talk about it? No. Are you sure? Like, I want to support you. How are you feeling right now? Oh, well, I'm a little bit stressed. Well, how long have you been feeling that way? You're diving, you're poking, you're prodding, you're taking that person on a journey to understand them and to potentially influence their worldview so they can come on the journey with you. But all too often in relationships, we ask these closed questions and we also mind read. Oh, he's been with me for 10 years. He should understand what I'm thinking and feeling. Like, we're not Jedis, Yoda. Like, me no understanding. Like, I can't read your mind. And we do this in relationships all the time. Oh, that staff member should have known. Oh, my kids should know. Oh, she should have known. She should know I'm hungry. She should know I don't want to talk. How? How? What you say, the way you say it, and the questions you ask, they all turn together. So if you are struggling with this in your relationship, if you don't feel understood, if you don't feel appreciated, if you don't feel respected, it's very likely your partner doesn't feel those things, right? So you ask. We teach this in our love meetings. There will be a podcast about that. Very, very powerful tool. I do want to move forward here because we're running out of time. Number 4, listening and being heard. Actually, let's go back. I mentioned this in a previous podcast. At the love meeting that I had with Rosie, I said to her, it would be nice to know that you care, right? She asked me what I need in my relationship. I asked her what she needs. She said, don't judge me. It'd be nice to not be judged by my husband. I said to her, it'd be nice to know that you care. You ask me sometimes how my day's going, and then I start telling you, and then you just stop talking to me after like a sentence. So every day the last few weeks, she has said to me, you know, how's your day going? And she genuinely cares. But I had to ask for that. I can't expect her to read my mind and want that. Let's move on to the next one. Listening and being heard. Listening and being heard. How many times do we want to be heard by our partner or the people in our life? We want them to understand us, but we don't reciprocate.
Yes.
What does it mean to listen? What does that mean?
For so many people, listening is just like, yeah, I heard what you said. I'm doing all the things, but I heard what you said.
Yeah.
I love the concept of listening and being heard. There's an element, without hijacking this, there's an element of assertiveness. So in a relationship, both parties get to have a voice, and there's got to be, you know, choice of words, tonality, asking powerful questions to create that safety in a relationship, to be able to have a voice and say, this is what's going on for me. This is what's happening. You ask the question. Here's the response. Now, listening's like, okay, cool. No, it's okay. So what I'm hearing you say is that when I do X, Y, and Z, you're feeling like this. And when you're on the receiving end of that, it's like, oh, I'm heard, I'm acknowledged, maybe not fully understood, but I'm acknowledged, I'm validated. But to be able to give that back to someone else, I think, is massive in terms of communication. Putting yourself out there sometimes, having a voice, saying things how they are, it's not always comfortable. But to then be able to be heard, but also to give that to someone else and say, so what I'm hearing you say is, and then you layer and layer. So what if we did this? What if we did that? And you start to move toward an outcome.
Yeah. And it ties everything else together. The
Absolutely.
choice of words, the tonality, the powerful questions. Because ultimately, every argument is just both parties wanting to be heard.
Yeah.
It's like, here's my opinion, here's my worldview. And the other person's like, here's my opinion, here's my worldview. Arguments cannot exist if one of you just shuts the fuck up and listens.
Yeah.
But our ego gets in the way, and we want to have our point heard and our point proven. So we just go at them. We either yell or spew out what we believe to be true, and they have a conflicting view. And neither of us wants to back down because our ego gets in the way. But the argument ends if you can just breathe, listen, look them in the eyes, and try and hear them. You don't have to agree with them.
Mm.
But you also don't have to be right. You don't have to prove a point. You can just hear them and go, let me process that. I may not agree with it, but I want to hear you right now. You look them in the eyes. You're present. You're hyper present. You're not thinking about anything else. And you listen. And then once you've heard what they've said to you, you repeat back, okay, so what I've heard you say is this, 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 and this. And then they know that you've actually heard them because you could repeat it back to them. Doesn't mean you have to agree, but it's ultimately you're a listener. And it doesn't have to be an argument, by the way. You can do this in any conversation. When I go downstairs during a lunch break, I work from home running the podcast, and I sit with my wife for 10 minutes. I can sit with my wife and I can just be thinking about work, or I can look her in the eyes and ask her how her day's going, and I can listen to her and she can feel heard. And the only way she's going to feel heard is if she sees that I'm attentive, that I'm present, that I'm in the moment. As men, we don't do this. It's not our fault. We're so busy and like we can't switch our brain off and we just go, 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 go. And it's like, how do we pull ourselves back into the moment? We bring ourselves into the moment by sensing the 5 senses, and we get curious and ask questions. How's your day going? We turn off that part of us that's like busy, busy, busy. And we're like, I'm going to be here with my family now. I'm going to listen. And this is actually quite fun, because when you realize this is how relationships start, you want to know everything about each other. We lose that in our marriages, in our relationships.
Yeah.
You want to constantly be finding things out about your partner. You want to be asking questions and listening and hearing them, and you want them to do the same. But it's really hard to do that if you don't communicate.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of men, they don't feel appreciated, desired, heard. But I guarantee your wife doesn't feel the same way.
Yeah.
And this is where the ego comes in, right? Because the ego for a busy, successful man is like, my wife doesn't understand working hard and going to war. And the wife's ego gets in the way and she goes, he doesn't understand how hard it is to look after these kids. And neither of you feel heard. Neither of you feel understood.
Yeah.
It's really important to come together and discuss these things. Did you guys ever do that before you separated? Did you have that conversation? We are going to talk about gender roles in a future episode. But did you have that listening and hearing exchange?
We did, but often that would be the tail end of a heated argument.
Yeah.
It would take us some form of catastrophic conversation to get us to that point. And we're like, why don't we do this consistently?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things, if I can jump in, when we give our partner the gift of being heard, like that, for us as men to be able to take on board what they're saying without interrupting is massive. And I see so many men just like, yeah, but I just jumped in and cut her off. And it's like, she doesn't feel heard. No matter what happens from there, walls are up.
Yeah.
And it's a conversation and communication killer.
Yeah.
When we can sit there and take it and not interrupt and give them that gift of being able to communicate, just the fact, even if you don't get to a full-on resolution at that point, just the fact that we've shut up, let them speak, not interrupted, is massive.
Yeah.
And then when it's our turn to talk, we're well within our right to ask for that same level of respect.
Yeah.
Then
exactly.
We meet on a level playing field.
But it starts with us.
Yes.
And so many guys are like, well, what if my wife doesn't do this or do that? Well, not train her. It's going to sound terrible. If somebody clips this up, it will sound terrible. You don't want to train your wife. You don't want to train your partner, but to a degree, you want to influence them and get them to see what's normal. And if you can step up and lead as a man, if you can lead with vulnerability, lead by asking questions, lead with good tonality, be genuinely curious, give a lot of fucks about that person, despite how busy or stressed you are, despite how hard your life is as a man, you care and you show that and you lead the way. It's very unlikely your wife or partner isn't going to come on the journey. It's very unlikely if you make them feel heard and supported and appreciated, they're not going to give you intimacy, sex, connection. Very unlikely. Because women are emotional creatures, men are physical creatures most of the time. So if you can meet them on their emotional level by giving a lot of fucks, asking good questions, not being shitty with your tonality, using the right language, they're going to come on the journey. Yeah. And if they don't, then you get to have a conversation about that. They probably will. And it takes a lot of responsibility as a man to own that shit. Like the quality of your relationships dictates the quality of your life, and the quality of your relationships is on you.
Yeah.
Your partner has a role to play, but the way you communicate with her is on you, no one else. And that's a bitter pill to swallow, man. If you guys get into arguments, one thing we'll leave with as well, because we're going to finish up here. We've got a really powerful podcast next week, so make sure you guys are there for that. Is fuck, I've just had a mind blank. I've had a mind blank. Yeah. Anything you want to add? It was really good as well. It's completely fucking brain farted.
just to tie some of it up, like with the ego, one of the things that we get to lay down as men is the need to be right all the time and the need to have the last word.
Yeah.
That, again, that'll just build the walls up. Communication killer. It's laying down that ego, hearing. Maybe sometimes it is right for you to have the last word because of whatever the context is, but sometimes you were wrong, and that's okay. It's okay to own that and acknowledge it, and that's how we grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I love that. So that's it for this one. Just recapping for anyone who's listening. So the first communication secret, or how to communicate to eliminate arguments and to connect better with your partner and the people you care about, is the words that you use. It's the choice of words. So identify what the trigger words are, remove them, and find out what your partner wants to hear and what you want to hear.
Mm.
The second one is tonality, how you say things. How you say things is extremely important. It's just as important as what you say. You can say the right words in the wrong way, and it can cause a lot of problems. The third tip is asking powerful questions. One of the most powerful questions you can ask your partner, and we're going to go deep into this in next week's call, in next week's podcast, but it's like, how are you? Is everything okay for you? What's going on for you? How are you feeling? What are you thinking about? You know, how are you feeling? What are you thinking about? You're modeling their worldview. Just genuinely care. Give a lot of fucks. Be inquisitive. Be curious. And then listen and be heard. Listen to people. You got one mouth, two ears for a reason. Listen and let them be heard, and say to them, what I've heard you say is, like, it's such a powerful frame. And then finally, as Sam said, put aside your ego. You don't need to be right all the time. I know as high performance man, I don't know about you, Sam, I feel like my way is always the best way. Like, I'm always right. Why can't you just fucking go from A to B? Why do you got to complicate things, woman? Because that's how she's wired. I don't need to be right. I can be right without telling her I'm right. And I can accept her version of right, even though I consider it to be wrong. It takes a lot of fucking balls to admit that.
Yeah.
So those are some very simple, effective ways you can instantly improve your communication. Next week, we're going to be talking about something called the love meeting. As a matter of fact, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll link a video up top right or somewhere here if you want to watch it. But it's going to be an extremely powerful video for connecting in your relationships, which is going to have an impact on everything, your business, your health, everything else. So if you got value from this, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you're listening on YouTube or somewhere else so you can let us know your questions. And we'll see you guys for the next episode of the Empowered Man podcast. Hey, brother, I hope you got a ton of value from that podcast. If you would like to work with us personally and get some of the best content we've launched for our clients who have invested thousands of dollars, then go and complete our 7-day Empowered Man Challenge. This mission will completely transform your life. If it doesn't, you won't have to pay a cent. It's only $37, and it is game-changing if you want to take back control. So if you want to find balance between business, family, and life, if you want the relationship, the health, the wealth that you deserve, then go to elitebusinessman.com/challenge. That's elitebusinessman.com/challenge, and take up this challenge to take back control of your life.